Hello, my name is Alexa and I'm a senior at UCLA studying geology, and today I will present to you results on changes in the water cycle and climate in Southeast Arizona over the past 20,000 years. This is a research project with Professor Radha Tripathi and several other members of her lab. To begin with, I'll give you some background information. The southwestern United States is a water-sensitive region that is currently arid and is projected to become even drier in the subsequent years as a result of anthropogenic climate change. We are interested in studying the processes that have led to the present-day aridity and why the region had more moisture in the past. So Earth experienced a glacial period called the last glacial maximum 20,000 years ago. This is a time when cooler temperatures and large ice sheets extended throughout much of North America, which is depicted in the image on the left. This time interval is interesting to us for a second reason, because it is a target for benchmarking the performance of climate models. So we focused our study on Wilcox Basin in Southeast Arizona, and it used to house a closed basin lake called Lake Cochise, which are the two images closer to the right. In a closed basin lake, precipitation is the primary input and evaporation is the primary output. This is important to note because sediments from shorelines of closed basin lakes can serve as archives for past hydrologic change. And so to understand how precipitation, evaporation, and temperature evolved in the Southwest, we collected and dated ancient shoreline sediments, used an isotopic method called carbonate clumped isotope thermometry to estimate water temperatures, from which air temperatures and 18O/16O ratios in lake water were determined. We also constrained and quantified annual precipitation and evaporation rates using clumped isotope results and hydrologic mass balance modeling, which is shown in the next slide. So my group did this by first going into the field and collecting samples and then cleaning and preparing those samples for geochemical analyses. The image on the left is an example of a shoreline carbonate that we processed in the lab. Afterwards, radiocarbon dating was performed at the University of California, Irvine to get age constraints on our samples using mass spectrometry. In our lab, we used a gas source mass spectrometer to determine light stable isotope ratios on our samples, which you can see on the right. And so we measured 13C, 12C ratios, 18O, 16O ratios, and clumped isotopes, which is based on 13C, 18O ratios, and is reported as CAP 47. So these are some of our results. The figure on the left shows elevation over time on the bottom panel and 18O, 16O ratios of water over time on the top panel. The figure on the right shows precipitation anomalies on the top panel and evaporation anomalies over time on the bottom panel, where anomalies show percent change relative to modern values. So we actually found evidence for 3 intervals when lake levels were affected by changes in the climate that affected the water cycle. And those intervals are denoted by light gray bars labeled 1, 2, 3. Interval 1 happened during the last glacial maximum. We report increased precipitation being responsible for maintaining the lake at an elevation of 1,274 meters. We also note that lake water was depleted in Delta 18O and resembles modern winter precipitation, which is consistent with winter storms being a primary input of water to the region. The second interval reveals a second precipitation forcing concurrent with the lake rising in level. At 13.4 thousand years ago, during the transition out of the Ice Age, we observed a major shift in water 18O/16O ratios, which may indicate a switch from predominantly winter precipitation to summer precipitation during the end of the deglaciation. And then the third interval is marked by a significant drop in lake level, which is likely due to an increase in evaporation and a decrease in precipitation. We also note that 18O/16O ratios of water continue to reflect modern summer precipitation values. So we predict that moisture moisture sources may have not changed substantially since the end of the deglaciation. And this last figure shows annual precipitation anomalies derived from our clumped isotopes compared to climate model simulations for the southwestern United States. The diamonds are estimates independently derived from fossil pollen estimates, and the circles are our lake estimates. And this comparison for the model benchmarking exercise shows that the estimate for enhanced ice age precipitation estimated using our clumped isotope based approach is reproduced in most of the models, which is exciting. Although our data support a larger change in precipitation, those models that agree with our data are circled in red. So ultimately, our data support cooler and wetter than modern conditions at Wilcox Basin during the LGM and throughout the deglaciation. Water isotope estimates indicate that the primary moisture sources shifted from winter precipitation to summer precipitation at around 13.4 thousand years ago. And then based on prior analyses from our group, this moisture may have been delivered via atmospheric rivers and a weaker North American monsoon during the last ice age, and a strengthening of the monsoon during the deglaciation. So in future work, we'll assess the spatial and temporal evolution of the water cycle and climate drivers discussed in the study in greater depth. So lastly, I'd like to acknowledge all the programs that supported me in my lab. Thank you to the CAMP program for allowing me to present my work and for also supporting me in my research. I'd also like to acknowledge the native caretakers of this region. So thank you.